I'm Lily Martinez, just a normal 33-year-old marketing manager living in Boston. At least that's what my family thinks. What they don't know could fill a book. Actually, it's about to. I always believed family was supposed to be your sanctuary, your safe haven, the people who lift you up when the world drags you down. My definition changed last Christmas, when everything I'd been holding back for years finally came to light. That was the day I received a bus pass as my Christmas gift from my parents. That was also the day I decided they would soon see my name on their private jet. They never truly knew who I was, and they had no idea what I was about to do next. My family consists of my parents, Gloria and Miguel Martinez, and my two sisters, Maya, 27, a famous Instagram influencer with 2 million followers who lives a life of luxury, and Carla, 35, a successful attorney who my parents never stop praising. And then there's me, the family disappointment, the one they believe will never amount to anything. Growing up as the middle child, I was perpetually caught in the shadows of my sisters. Carla, the eldest, was the golden child, brilliant, ambitious, and driven. She graduated top of her class from law school and landed a position at a prestigious firm almost immediately. Her face graced legal magazines, and my parents kept every article framed in our living room like trophies. Then there was Maya, the baby of the family, beautiful, charismatic, and savvy enough to transform her natural charm into a lucrative social media empire. At 27, she commanded attention wherever she went, her Instagram posts generating thousands of dollars in revenue from brand deals and partnerships. My parents beamed with pride whenever they scrolled through her feed, showing her photos to anyone who would look. And in the middle? Me, Lily, the unremarkable one, or so they thought. My parents, Gloria and Miguel, had their own story. Mom was a retired school teacher who'd spent 30 years molding young minds before hanging up her lesson plans. Dad had bounced between various business ventures, none particularly successful, but he maintained the confident air of a titan of industry nonetheless. Together, they created a household where achievement was currency, and I was apparently broke. The pattern of dismissal and subtle cruelty started early, but as adults, it became more pronounced. I could recite a catalog of incidents that slowly chipped away at any semblance of family connection. In December 2019, Maya approached me about a new product promotion campaign she was launching. "It's going to be huge. Lily, I just need a small loan to get it off the ground. $5,000, that's all. I'll pay you back as soon as the sponsorships come through." Against my better judgment, I agreed. The money never returned to my account. And whenever I brought it up, Maya would wave her manicured hand dismissively. "Don't be so uptight about money. It's just $5,000. Besides, Mom and Dad would want you to support my career." Then in August 2021, I received a call from my father. "Lily, your sister Carla is taking a much-needed vacation to Europe. She's been working so hard. We need you to cover her expenses for the trip." "What? Why me?" I asked, genuinely confused. "Because she deserves it, and you have a steady job with no real responsibilities. It's the least you can do for family." I refused, which triggered weeks of cold shoulders and passive-aggressive texts from both parents and Carla. Eventually, they found another way to fund her luxury vacation, but the message was clear. My boundaries meant nothing to them. March 2022. Should have been a celebration. I received a promotion at work, moving up to senior marketing manager with a respectable salary increase. When I shared the news at a family dinner, hoping for at least token congratulations, my mother's response cut deep. "Marketing? Why couldn't you study something respectable like law like Carla? You're like someone who works collecting trash, always talking about engagement and clicks like they matter in the real world." My father nodded in agreement. "At least trash collectors provide an essential service." They laughed. Maya snickered behind her napkin. Carla gave me a look of pity that somehow hurt worse than the mockery. By November 2022, I'd stopped sharing any news about my life with them, yet they found ways to diminish me regardless. At Thanksgiving dinner, with extended family present, my mother loudly advised me, "Don't expect to ever afford a place of your own. Lily, just keep taking the bus and live within your means. This, in front of aunts, uncles, and cousins who shifted uncomfortably in their seats, eyes avoiding mine. But the breaking point, the moment that shattered any remaining illusion that we were a normal family with normal problems, came on December 24th, 2023. The Martinez family Christmas celebration was always an elaborate affair, held at the Willowbrook Estate, a magnificent venue my parents somehow managed to afford despite their modest income. 50 guests, all dressed in holiday finery, gathered to exchange gifts and pleasantries. The rooms sparkled with decorations, the air heavy with the scent of pine and cinnamon. When it came time for gift exchanges, Maya received a set of keys to a new Tesla from our parents. Carla unwrapped documents for a timeshare in Aspen. Both exchanges were met with applause and exclamations of delight from the assembled guests. Then it was my turn. My mother handed me a small envelope with a thin smile. "For you, Lily dear." Inside was a public transit pass, a bus pass. The plastic card caught the light as I held it up, confused. "We hope this helps you get to work and school without bothering the family for rides anymore," my father announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. "It's time you learned to be self-sufficient." The room fell silent. I could feel 50 pairs of eyes on me, some curious, some embarrassed on my behalf, some gleefully awaiting my reaction. Maya broke the silence with a tinkling laugh. "Look at her face. Can you imagine Lily riding the bus every day? How sad." My mother patted my hand, her voice carrying across the room. "This is how we teach our youngest daughter to live in the real world." I scanned the room, looking for a friendly face. My eyes landed on Aunt Susan, my father's sister and a corporate attorney. Unlike the others, she wasn't smiling or looking away in embarrassment. She was watching my parents with narrowed eyes, something like recognition dawning on her face. I managed a stiff smile, thanked them for their thoughtfulness, and excused myself to get some air. Outside, I sat in my old Toyota, the car I'd purchased myself but told my family was a hand-me-down from a coworker, and let the tears come. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel. "I can't believe they would humiliate me like this on Christmas," I whispered to the empty car. "What kind of parents do this to their child?" I called my best friend, Rachel, who answered, despite the late hour and the holiday. "They did what?" she demanded after I explained what happened. "Gave me a bus pass, in front of everyone, like I'm some charity case." My voice broke. "Lily," Rachel said firmly, "this has gone on long enough. You are not their little girl anymore. You don't have to take this treatment." As her words sank in, something shifted inside me. The tears stopped. The shaking subsided. In their place came a clarity I'd never experienced before. "You're right," I said, my voice steady. "I'm not their little girl anymore, and it's time they learned exactly who I am." What my family didn't know, what I deliberately kept from them for years, was that I wasn't just a marketing manager at some anonymous firm. That was merely my cover story. The truth was far more impressive. Back in 2018, I'd started my own marketing consultancy, Luma Strategies, specializing in digital transformation for traditional businesses. I began small, taking on clients in the evenings and on weekends while maintaining my day job. As my reputation grew, so did my client list. Within 2 years, I was the CEO of a thriving company with a team of 15 employees and an annual revenue of $1.2 million. I'd made strategic investments in Boston real estate, amassing a portfolio worth over $3 million. I served as an independent advisor to 2 Silicon Valley tech startups, one of which was on track to go public the following year. My financial advisor had recently informed me that I was on track to reach a net worth of $10 million by the time I turned 40. And no one in my family had any idea. I'd kept my success hidden partly out of a desire for privacy, but mostly because I'd seen how my family operated. Success wasn't celebrated unless it could be exploited. Achievement wasn't acknowledged unless it could be leveraged. I'd watched Maya and Carla become pawns in my parents' social climbing games, and I wanted no part of it. But as I sat in my car that Christmas night, bus pass clutched in my hand, I realized that my silence had become a form of self-betrayal. By hiding my accomplishments, I was allowing their narrative about me to stand unchallenged. I was complicit in my own diminishment. No more. Over the next week, I developed a plan. It wasn't just about revenge, though that was certainly part of it. It was about truth, about finally being seen for who I really was, about accountability for years of emotional abuse and manipulation. First, I gathered evidence. Every demeaning text message, every belittling email, every social media post where Maya or my parents had subtly mocked me. I had years of material, saved not out of masochism, but out of a vague sense that someday I might need proof of what I'd endured. Next, I scheduled a meeting with Whitfield Legal Group, a boutique law firm specializing in family law and civil litigation. I met with Sandra Whitfield herself, a formidable attorney in her 60s with a reputation for handling high-profile family disputes. "Let me make sure I understand," Sandra said after I'd explained my situation. "You want to pursue a civil case against your family for emotional abuse and financial exploitation. But first, you want to reveal your true financial status at a family gathering?" "That's correct," I confirmed. "I want them to know exactly who they've been belittling all these years before the legal proceedings begin." Sandra leaned back in her chair, studying me. "It's unusual, but not unprecedented. We can prepare the necessary documentation. However, I must advise you that family lawsuits are messy, expensive, and emotionally draining." "I understand, and I'm prepared for all of that." I handed her a flash drive. "This contains 5 years of evidence, text messages, emails, recorded conversations where they disparaged me, financial records showing how they've attempted to exploit me. I believe it's more than sufficient to establish a pattern of behavior." Sandra took the drive with a nod. "We'll review everything and prepare the necessary filings. As for your revelation, when do you plan to make it?" "New Year's Eve," I said. "My parents are hosting their annual party at the Hamilton Plaza in Chicago. Everyone will be there. It's the perfect stage." As I left Sandra's office, I felt lighter than I had in years. The plan was in motion, but I needed one more element to make it truly effective: an ally. Mr. Thompson had been my boss at the marketing firm where I'd worked before fully committing to Luma Strategies. He'd witnessed firsthand some of my family's toxic behavior when they'd shown up at company events and treated me like an afterthought. He'd also been one of my first clients when I started my own business and had referred several major accounts my way. "Of course I'll help," he said when I called to explain my plan. "I've watched you bend over backward for those people for years, only to be treated like dirt. It's about time they learned who they've been dealing with." With Mr. Thompson on board, all the pieces were in place. I sent formal invitations to my entire family for a special announcement at the Hamilton Plaza on New Year's Eve, claiming I had life-changing news to share. My mother immediately called, asking if I'd finally met someone decent. "You could say I've made a significant connection," I replied cryptically. "You won't want to miss this." The night of December 31st arrived, cold and clear in Chicago. The Crystal Ballroom at the Hamilton Plaza glittered with holiday decorations, a space I'd rented for a princely sum to ensure we'd have privacy for what was about to unfold. I arrived early, dressed not in my usual modest attire, but in a custom Valentino gown that cost more than my father's monthly mortgage payment. My hair and makeup had been professionally done, and around my neck hung a simple but elegant diamond pendant, a gift to myself after Luma Strategies signed our biggest client to date. Mr. Thompson greeted me at the entrance, dressed in a sharp suit and looking every inch the successful executive he was. "Everything's ready," he confirmed. "The presentation is queued up, and Sandra's associate is in position." I nodded, taking a deep breath. "Let's do this." My family arrived as a group: my parents, Maya, and Carla, all dressed in their holiday finest, looking confident and completely unaware of what awaited them. They faltered slightly when they saw me, clearly taken aback by my appearance. "Lily?" my mother approached, eyes scanning my dress with obvious confusion. "You look different." "Thank you, Mother. Please, everyone take your seats. We're about to begin. They exchanged glances but complied, settling into the front row of chairs arranged before a small stage where a podium and projection screen had been set up. A few other guests began to arrive. Aunt Susan, a couple of cousins, and some family friends who had witnessed my humiliation at Christmas. At precisely 8 o'clock, I stepped up to the podium. The room fell silent. "Thank you all for coming tonight," I began, my voice steady and clear. "I've gathered you here because I believe it's time for some truth-telling. For years, I've allowed a certain narrative about me to persist within this family. Tonight, that changes." I clicked a remote, and the screen behind me illuminated with the first slide, a series of text messages from my mother to my father, dated just after my promotion announcement. "Lily thinks being a senior anything in marketing is an achievement. Should we tell her that real success is what Carla and Maya have, not playing with social media all day?" Gasps echoed through the room. My mother's face paled. "Let's continue, shall we?" I clicked to the next slide, my father's email to a family friend. "Our middle daughter is something of a disappointment. No ambition, no real prospects. We're trying to teach her self-sufficiency, but some people just don't have what it takes." With each new slide, the evidence mounted, messages mocking my career, my appearance, my lifestyle, comments about how I would never amount to anything, plans to borrow money from me because it's not like she's doing anything important with it. Then came the shift. The screen changed to show the Luma Strategies website, with my name and photo prominently displayed as founder and CEO. What many of you don't know is that for the past 5 years, I've been running my own marketing consultancy. Luma Strategies currently employs 23 people and generates annual revenue of $1.2 million. More slides appeared. Financial statements, property deeds, investment portfolios. I own 3 properties in Boston with a combined value of $3 million. I serve as an advisor to 2 Silicon Valley startups, and last month, I acquired a 10% stake in Silverstone Air, the private jet charter service that, ironically, this family used to fly to Aspen just last week. The room had gone completely silent. My mother's mouth hung open. My father stared at the screen as if trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Maya had gone pale beneath her perfect makeup. Only Carla seemed to be processing the information, her legal mind quickly connecting the dots. "Lily," she started, "we should discuss this privately." "No," I cut her off firmly. "We've had private discussions for years. They've led nowhere. Tonight is about public truth, about accountability." I gestured to Sandra Whitfield, who had entered silently during my presentation, and now stood at the back of the room. "This is my attorney. Tomorrow morning, she will be filing a civil suit against Gloria and Miguel Martinez for emotional abuse, defamation, and attempted financial exploitation. The damages sought will be $500,000. My father found his voice at last. "This is ridiculous. You can't sue your own parents." "Actually, she can," Sandra spoke up from the back. "And based on the evidence I've reviewed, she has an excellent case." "Lily," my mother stood, her voice trembling. "This can't be real." "It's all real. Mother, every bit of it. While you were giving me bus passes and mocking my career, I was building an empire. While you were telling everyone I would never amount to anything, I was amounting to quite a lot." I looked around the room, meeting the eyes of relatives and friends who had witnessed years of my family's treatment. "And all of you were complicit. You saw how they treated me. You heard the comments, the put-downs, the dismissals, and you said nothing." Aunt Susan stood up then. "I knew something wasn't right. The way they spoke to you at Christmas, I should have said something years ago. I'm sorry. Lily." More murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. The tide was turning. Maya, never one to read a room correctly, scoffed loudly. "This is obviously fake. Photoshopped documents and a rented dress don't make you successful. Lily, you're just jealous of what Carla and I have accomplished." I smiled at her, feeling oddly calm. "You know what's interesting about social media influencers, Maya? Their entire career depends on public goodwill. I wonder what your 2 million followers would think if they knew how you treat your own sister. If they saw these texts? I clicked to a slide showing Maya's messages mocking me to her friends. Or if they knew you borrowed $5,000 from me for a campaign and never paid it back? Maya's face drained of color. Don't worry, I continued. I won't be sharing any of this publicly. Unlike some people in this room, I don't believe in public humiliation as a family value. This stays between us, as long as the lawsuit is settled quickly and certain behaviors change permanently. I turned to my parents. You have 24 hours to decide how you want to proceed. Contest the lawsuit, and everything I've shown here tonight becomes public record. Settle quietly, and we can all move forward with our lives, separately. With that, I stepped away from the podium. The room erupted in conversation as I walked toward the exit, Mr. Thompson falling into step beside me. That was quite a performance, he murmured. It wasn't a performance, I replied. It was the truth, finally. Outside, the winter air was bracing, the Chicago skyline glittering against the night sky. I took a deep breath, feeling as though I could properly fill my lungs for the first time in years. My phone began buzzing almost immediately. Calls from my parents, from Carla, from Maya. I silenced it and slipped it back into my clutch. What now? Mr. Thompson asked, as we waited for the valet to bring my car. I smiled, a genuine smile that felt foreign on my face after so many years of careful control. Now I live my life, on my terms. The aftermath unfolded more dramatically than even I had anticipated. By the morning of January 1st, news of the confrontation had spread through our extended family like wildfire. My phone was flooded with messages, some supportive, some accusatory, all expressing shock at the revelations of both my success and my family's treatment. My parents' initial response was denial and counterattack. My father called me a manipulative liar in a family-wide email, claiming I had fabricated evidence and was suffering from delusions of grandeur. My mother took a softer approach, suggesting I needed professional help and that my false accusations stemmed from childhood jealousy of my sisters. Their unified front didn't last long. Within 48 hours, cracks began to appear. My father, realizing the legal evidence against him was substantial, attempted to negotiate a private settlement without my mother's knowledge. When she discovered his back-channel communication with Sandra Whitfield, their decades-long marriage began to unravel with stunning speed. Maya's response was perhaps the most dramatic. Upon returning to Los Angeles, she immediately posted a carefully crafted video to her Instagram, tearfully discussing family turmoil and asking for privacy during this difficult time. Her followers, sensing the calculated nature of her performance, responded with unexpected skepticism. Screenshots of her mocking texts about me, leaked by a cousin who had been at the New Year's Eve confrontation, began circulating online. Within a week, she had lost over 200,000 followers and 3 major brand partnerships. Carla, the legal mind, was the quickest to assess the situation realistically. She called me directly on January 3rd. "I'm not going to pretend I understand why you kept your success a secret all these years," she said, her voice carefully controlled. "But I do understand why you're angry." "Do you?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Yes, I've reviewed the evidence you presented. It's compelling and disturbing." She paused. "I was complicit. I knew how they treated you, and I said nothing because it was easier to go along with it than to challenge them." "Yes," I agreed. "You were complicit. I'm not contesting that. I'm calling to tell you I won't be defending them in the lawsuit. In fact, I'm distancing myself from the situation entirely. I've taken a leave of absence from the firm to reassess some things." That surprised me. Carla had always been defined by her work, her ambition. That's a significant step. "Yes, well," she sighed heavily. "Watching your little sister expose our family's toxic dynamics in front of our relatives tends to trigger some self-reflection." The lawsuit itself moved swiftly, faced with overwhelming evidence and abandonment by Carla, who they had assumed would represent them. My parents agreed to a settlement within 3 weeks. They paid the full $500,000 in damages, signed non-disclosure agreements regarding my business dealings, and agreed to cease all contact unless initiated by me. Their marriage didn't survive the process. By the end of January, they had filed for divorce, each blaming the other for the family implosion. My father moved to Florida to stay with his brother. My mother remained in their Boston home, suddenly forced to navigate life without the financial support she'd always taken for granted. As for me, I decided it was time for a fresh start. I relocated Luma Strategies headquarters to Seattle, leasing a stunning office space overlooking Puget Sound. I purchased a modern home in Madison Park for $1.5 million, a place that was entirely mine, with no family history embedded in its walls. The company continued to thrive. Without the emotional drain of maintaining my false persona with my family, I found new reserves of creativity and focus. We landed 2 major national accounts in February alone, and I hired 10 new employees to handle the expanding workload. More important than the professional success was the personal freedom. I joined a networking group for female entrepreneurs and found something I'd never experienced in my biological family: genuine support, celebration of achievement, and relationships built on mutual respect rather than obligation or competition. In late February, I attended a tech conference in Vancouver where I was invited to speak on digital marketing strategies for emerging technologies. After my presentation, a tall, quietly confident man approached me to discuss potential collaborations. James was the CEO of a software company specializing in data analytics for marketing applications, and our professional conversation quickly evolved into something more personal over dinner that evening. Unlike my family, James was interested in hearing about my journey, fascinated by the strategies I'd developed, and impressed not just by my financial success, but by the resilience it had taken to achieve it while dealing with such a toxic family environment. "I can't imagine maintaining that kind of secret," he said as we shared dessert. "The psychological toll must have been enormous." "It was," I admitted. "For years, I'd go to family gatherings and listen to them disparage my career, my choices, my potential, all while knowing I was more successful than they could imagine. Part of me wanted to reveal everything, just to see their faces, but another part knew they didn't deserve to share in my success, even as spectators." "And now, after the big reveal and the lawsuit, do you regret any of it?" I considered the question carefully. I regret that it came to this. I regret that I didn't have the kind of family who could celebrate each other's victories and support each other through failures. But I don't regret standing up for myself. I don't regret demanding accountability. 3 months after the New Year's Eve confrontation, I received unexpected news from Aunt Susan. She called me directly, her voice unusually hesitant. "Lily, I want you to know that your mother is selling the house. The divorce has left her in a difficult financial position." "I see," I replied, not sure how I was supposed to feel about this information. "She's been asking if you might help her." I closed my eyes, a familiar tension forming between my shoulders. "And what did you tell her?" "I told her that she should speak to you directly if she wants to ask for something. But Lily," Susan paused, "she's afraid to contact you. The settlement requires her to wait for you to initiate communication." "That's correct." "So, will you reach out to her?" I thought about it, thought about the years of dismissal and cruelty, thought about the Christmas bus pass, thought about the look on her face when she realized who I really was. "No," I said finally. "I won't be reaching out. Not now. Possibly not ever. She made her choices. Susan, now she's living with the consequences. Just as I lived with the consequences of being the family scapegoat for years." "That seems harsh." "Does it? More harsh than publicly humiliating your daughter on Christmas? More harsh than constantly undermining her confidence and self-worth? More harsh than raising her to believe she was fundamentally less valuable than her sisters?" Susan was silent for a long moment. "When you put it that way, no, I suppose it isn't." After we hung up, I sat in my beautiful new home office, looking out at the Seattle skyline. I felt no satisfaction at the news of my mother's financial troubles. no vindictive pleasure in her distress. What I felt was something much more powerful: indifference. Her problems were no longer my problems. Her approval was no longer something I sought. Her opinion of me no longer mattered. That evening, I received an email from James with potential dates for his visit to Seattle. As I responded, suggesting restaurants we might try and sights we might see, I realized I was smiling. Not the careful, measured smile I'd perfected for family gatherings, but a genuine expression of happiness. The path forward was clear now, unobstructed by family dynamics that had constrained me for so long. I had built something remarkable: a successful business, financial independence, a new home in a new city, and the beginnings of what might become meaningful relationships based on mutual respect and genuine affection. My phone buzzed with a text from one of my new Seattle friends, inviting me to a weekend hiking trip. "Say yes," she urged. "The mountains are spectacular this time of year." I typed my response without hesitation. "Absolutely. I'm in." As spring bloomed in Seattle, I found myself settling into rhythms that felt authentic and nourishing. My company continued to expand, moving into international markets with surprising ease. The executive team I'd assembled was exceptional, allowing me to focus on strategic vision while they handled day-to-day operations. James visited twice, each time extending his stay longer than planned. What had begun as professional respect was evolving into something deeper, though we were both cautious, taking time to ensure this connection was built on solid ground. In April, I received an invitation to speak at a major marketing conference in Boston. My immediate instinct was to decline. Boston held too many complicated memories. But after reflection, I accepted. I would not allow my family history to dictate my professional choices. The conference was held at the Hyatt Regency, just blocks from my old apartment. As I stood backstage, preparing to address an audience of industry leaders, I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure in the crowd: Carla. She hadn't contacted me since our brief conversation in January. Seeing her in the audience sent a jolt of adrenaline through my system, but I maintained my composure, delivering my presentation on digital marketing ethics with the confidence that had become my trademark. Afterward, as attendees networked over coffee, Carla approached me. She looked different, less polished, more authentic somehow. The designer suit had been replaced by a simple blouse and pants. The perfect makeup was gone, revealing freckles I'd forgotten she had. "That was an excellent presentation," she said, her voice carrying none of the condescension I was accustomed to. "You're very good at what you do." "Thank you." I kept my response neutral, unsure of her agenda. "I've been following Luma Strategies' expansion. The Singapore office is a bold move. It made strategic sense for our Asian market development." She nodded, then seemed to gather her courage. "Lily, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect you to want a relationship with me after everything, but I needed to tell you something in person." I waited, my expression carefully neutral. "I've left the firm," she said. "I'm teaching business law at Northeastern now. The pay is significantly less, but," she shrugged, "it turns out prestige isn't everything." "That's quite a change." "Yes, it is." She met my eyes directly. "Watching you stand up to them, to all of us, made me realize how much of my life has been spent chasing approval that was never freely given. I've been doing a lot of work with a therapist, unpacking our family dynamics. It's been illuminating." "I'm glad you're getting help," I said, meaning it. "Maya's not doing as well," Carla continued. "She's lost most of her sponsors. She's talking about rebranding, moving to lifestyle content instead of fashion. Mom's encouraging it, of course." "And how is Mom?" I asked, surprised to find I was genuinely curious rather than anxious. "Struggling. The divorce hit her hard. Dad moved to Florida with his new girlfriend. She's 28. If you can believe it, Mom had to sell the house. She's in a condo now, living on her teacher's pension." Carla hesitated. "She asks about you sometimes." "What do you tell her?" "The truth, that you're successful and seem happy, that you have every right to keep your distance." I nodded, grateful for the unexpected support. "Listen," Carla said, glancing at her watch. "I have to get back to campus for office hours, but I wanted to give you this." She handed me a business card with her new contact information. "If you ever want to talk about anything or nothing, I'm here. No pressure, no expectations." I took the card, surprised by the gesture. "Thank you." As Carla walked away, I felt a subtle shift within me. Not forgiveness, exactly. The wounds were still too fresh for that, but perhaps the first step towards something like peace. That evening, back in my hotel room, I called James and recounted the unexpected encounter. "Are you going to reach out to her?" he asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me thinks it's too little, too late. Another part wonders if people can really change." "In my experience, they can," James said thoughtfully, "but only if they genuinely want to, and only with considerable effort. The question is whether you want to be around for that process." "That's the real question, isn't it?" I sighed. "For now, I think I'll focus on the life I'm building, not the one I left behind." "That seems wise." As we talked about other things, his latest project, my upcoming trip to Singapore, the restaurant he wanted to take me to when I returned to Seattle, I felt a profound gratitude for the present moment, for the freedom to choose my own path, for relationships based on mutual respect rather than obligation, for the financial independence that allowed me to live life on my own terms. The next morning, as I prepared to check out of the hotel, I paused at the window, looking out at the Boston skyline. This city had been the backdrop for so much of my story, both the painful chapters and the triumphant ones. It no longer held power over me, no longer represented confinement or limitation. I thought about the bus pass, still tucked away in a drawer in my Seattle home. I'd kept it as a reminder, not of the humiliation, but of the moment when I'd finally decided enough was enough. In a strange way, it had become a talisman of transformation rather than a symbol of shame. My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant in Seattle, confirming my flight details and reminding me about a client meeting scheduled for the following day. This was my life now, purposeful, successful, surrounded by people who valued my contributions and respected my boundaries. As I gathered my belongings and headed for the door, I realized I was looking forward to returning to Seattle, to the home I'd created for myself, to the business I'd built from nothing, to the future I was crafting day by day, choice by choice. The bus pass had been meant as an insult, a reminder of my supposed failures and limitations. Instead, it had become the catalyst for claiming the life I deserved, a life my family never imagined I could achieve, and perhaps one they never imagined for themselves either. I stepped into the elevator, ready to leave Boston behind once more, but this time, I wasn't running away from something. I was moving toward everything I'd worked for, everything I'd earned, everything I deserved. And that made all the difference in the world.